Welcome to the Buddhist Recovery Network Academy. I'm Robin Smith, and today we're offering a new Academy teaching by Passatininna, the Dharma and Family Recovery. Thank you for joining us. So I just wanted to mention that all of our teachings are given freely. We have amazing teachers that come here monthly and share their experience of the Dharma and of recovery. And it's really benefits the entire community. And so we ask you to practice generosity. So we invite you to give dana, and that dana will be given to support the teachers, and it will also be used to help continue the BRN recovery meetings, those meetings that are happening all over the world now. You can either give on a one-time or a recurring basis. I'll put the dana link up, and actually I think I'm just going to put it up during the program and also towards the end so that we can create as much space here for the teacher. But when you use the link, please indicate whether it's for that it's for the Academy teachings, and that way we'll know to be able to offer some of that to the teachers. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our guest teacher. Her name is Christy Bates, and her ordination name is Passatininna. She is a teacher and a lay minister for the Embracing Simplicity Contemplative Order, and she's also a licensed professional counselor. She's originally from Alabama, so she's part of the Southern Stretch, as I am, and she began systematically increasing mindfulness via entering family recovery in 1985 between her junior and senior years at Rhodes College in Memphis. Passati, the root word of her ordination name, means to see clearly. Her work is to provide the mirroring experiences that allow those she serves to see reality more clearly, so as to work in harmony with it. Christy uses a variety of tools: contemplative skills, experiential work, and brain spotting. Brain spotting is a particularly targeted mindfulness practice that's very powerful in resolving trauma. So she uses all of these methods to help accomplish your goals. And there are two websites where you can find more information about her, and one is www.mindfulnashville.com. and the other is passaticounseling.com. And I'll also put those into the chat field so you can take notes towards the end. So without too much more discussion, I just wanted to invite Passatininna on and welcome you all to take advantage of her teaching. Thank you.
The first maybe 7 minutes to allow ourselves to settle into practice. And I want to work with a particular practice that to me feels very useful when addressing family issues. You know, Buddhadasa Bhikkhu talks about that he felt that the sort of the summary of the whole Dharma could be enclosed in the statement, nothing whatsoever should be clung to as I or mine. And so just for the next 5 to 7 minutes, we'll get settled in, but we're going to work with phrases, this is not mine, I am not that, this is not what I am. And so just allowing ourselves to be aware of what bubbles up, but also to applying those phrases to that. So with that, I'll get my little timer so I don't get carried away. We'll start in with the bell. And so taking a moment to attend to your physical form such that you allow the skeleton, the chair, the cushion, the floor to do the work, and allow the muscles to be supported. And having situated yourself in that way, in which you can feel supported, or the muscles of the body can feel supported, then allowing your attention to find its place, where you like to anchor, where you like to settle in, to observe what's happening with you. So for some people, that's by connecting to the place that it's easiest for you to feel the rise and fall of the breath, whether nostrils, chest, belly. For other people, there's just a real sense of support and calm, and a sense of anchoring in just feeling the support of the seat underneath or the ground underneath. But whatever it is, allowing yourself a sense of settling there and observing experience as it comes and goes while you stay put. And as experience comes and goes, silently noting to yourself, this is not mine, I am not that, this is not what I am. Whatever mental concerns, physical sensations, sensory input, this is not mine, I am not that, this is not what I am. Even the tendency for the mind to wander off can be recognized as not I, not mine. And gently redirecting, returning, and seeing. And also, no need to overthink these phrases. You can just let them be like a sound or a gong in your own mind over and over. This is not mine. I am not that. This is not what I am. So thanks for that opportunity to settle. Particularly because this topic it's a big topic. And so I've made myself a couple of notes just so that I won't ramble off into too many rabbit holes, although I like to leave some room for whatever needs to arise. So when we talk about, I want to talk about what I even mean by family recovery. Because when I talk about the Dharma and family recovery, I'm not talking about the topic of codependency, at least not in the sense of the way that it has historically been understood. I should say, before I go further, just sort of make the disclaimer that, I have, this number of decades of practicing, working with these topics, communing with other people around these topics. And so I have some points of view on it, but definitely anything I say can and should be checked against your own experience on this topic. But I will say, both personally and as a professional, that part of the history of that word codependency sort of arose out of addiction treatment settings, and the settings that were being governed mostly by people in recovery from substance addiction. And so I have a personal view that the idea that somebody is automatically sick because they love someone with a problem, that the idea that somebody is automatically sick because they love or have cared for or lived with someone who's had an addiction or has dealt with mental illness, that idea is not clear and accurate in and of itself. And I believe is born to some degree out of self-loathing of the people that I can say that many of the people that I have loved and cared about and enjoyed in my life, in all aspects of my life, that have dealt with addiction or mental illness in various forms, that there can be sort of a default to a place of, oh, if somebody else loves me, then they must be either saintly or sick. And so one of the things we want to clear up is that even though part of what I'm going to talk about today is how we can get spiritually sick, and so I use, I mentioned Buddhadasa Bhikkhu earlier. I really love his explanation of what we refer to as mental illness as actually being physical. Addiction and mental illness are physical aspects of the brain and body. Now, we utilize spiritual growth and spiritual tools to help us manage those things, but what we typically in our culture call mental illness is really an aspect of the physical. Spiritual illness has to do with attaching a sense of me and mine to our experience. And so the degree to which we identify with our feelings as ourselves, with our circumstances as ourselves, and our difficulties as ourselves, is going to be the degree to which we experience the distress of spiritual illness. Something that I want to sort of give us a clear picture of, so what would be the difference between someone who's dealing with a difficult situation and responding appropriately versus, well, one place to start would be one of the things I like to say is it's useful, so in the topic of family, we can apply it to any area of life, jobs, creative projects, anything, but just for now, we'll keep it in the topic of family. We can ask ourselves, okay, do I have a family or do I have a family? And what I mean by that is if we have a family in that I and mying sense of the word have, if we if there is a sense in the relationships in our lives, a sense of tension around, I need for these people to behave and speak and feel in ways that I want them to, so that I can be comfortable, or so that they reflect well on me, or so that I don't have to look at something that might be hard for me to look at. So that's having a family in the eyeing and mying sense, in the self-view sense. But then we can use that same sentence, speaking in a conventional manner. We can say, yes, I have a family, where what we mean by that is more along the lines of, these are the people that I commit my time and concern to. These are the people that I have made a commitment to keep them as a priority. And again, the same can be said of projects we undertake, whether those are creative projects, work projects, social justice projects, where it's not about the outcome, it's about what am I committing time and energy to? What am I willing to serve? What is it that I consider valuable and worth doing, no matter how it turns out? So that, I hope, clarifies some of what I mean by that. Something that was a real light bulb for me in a really useful way, it actually was when I was participating in an online training, the first round of training that I did in brain spotting that Robin mentioned earlier. And a man named Dr. David Scaer, who, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that name right, maybe Scaer, S-C-A-E-R, who has some expertise in trauma and was in an interview situation with Dr. David Grand, who sort of discovered and developed brain spotting. And Dr. Scaer said, told of a phenomenon where someone in battle, particularly if they are leading in battle, but just someone in battle, that they may get harmed physically, but may not even feel it until it's all over, until they've sort of, made sure their fellows are okay, or taken care of who's not okay. And it may be that after that battle's over, after it's all over, all of a sudden there comes this awareness of pain and some, to a significant degree. And I found that really useful just because it hit on something that I had felt intuitively for some time, that the finding that place of we can know that our culture's attitude, our mainstream culture's attitude, where the answer is always me first, we know that that's, in the Dharma, we know that that's not in harmony with reality. That's not in harmony with what's going to bring well-being to ourselves and others and to situations. And yet we also can recognize that if someone, after the battle's over, to stay with that metaphor, if instead of tending their wounds, they go look for another battle to return to that situation of being numbed, or they somehow attack themselves or blame themselves for the pain they're having. And that may sound silly, but I'm sure as I say it, most people listening can think of situations in which we've been harsh with ourselves, sort of having an attitude of like, well, why are you feeling bad about that now? It's all over. And it's just really important to recognize there was something going on where we needed to bookmark that stuff in the time of getting through it. I also think that in our culture, the way that we, even people with the very best of intentions, can do some blaming and shaming of partners who struggle to leave a partner who is struggling in some way, and who may even be dangerous, not recognizing that that the person we're trying to help, male or female, doesn't matter, that the person that we're trying to help, they're in that space of their concern is for everyone, including the person who even may be hurting them. And so recognizing that as that tending, caring aspect of the mind that can consider others as important as ourselves, and rather than shaming that, validating that, normalizing that, and from there being able to help the person recognize when maybe what they're doing isn't even helpful to their loved one. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is the recognition that those times when we feel protective of people that are actively ill, we may be protecting them in ways that are not helping. And this is so understandable. You know, when you think about any other, almost any other illness, anything from a common cold to somebody undergoing cancer treatments, just sticking with the partner situation for a while, we can find ourselves in situations where it's actually helpful to that person if for a short time we pick up the slack. You know, maybe we do more than what is usually our share of housework, or even helping to provide financially, and maybe more than our usual share of that. And so whereas in the ideal, if we started out in an ideal situation of feeling that we had some equality with that, as the other person maybe is under-functioning because of having the flu or because of having something more major, and then we overfunction temporarily. But in that situation, that actually is supportive of bringing things back to normal. Just as this person starts to feel better, they kind of want to take over, and we're glad to let go of the excess. With chronic stress, because these are acute situations. Even the fairly long-term things like cancer treatment, it's clear that it's a temporary situation. But where we get into the realm that people start getting labels attached to them, like codependency and that kind of thing, is when there's the chronic stress of long-term struggles with mental illness, long-term struggles with addiction. Also, even just long-term struggles with poverty, long-term struggles with some other family situation that makes the home a chronically stressful place where things are, one aspect or another is way out of balance and stays that way for months and years on end. Then what happens for people, particularly if we grow up and when we grow up in those environments, is that sense of not ever having gotten to begin with a sense of what an ideal amount of stress would be. You know, we all need enough stress to help us even feel alive and to be motivated to get the food and shelter we need and that sort of thing. But that ideal range, we really don't have a helpful sense of that. And so when we have these chronic situations where our self-forgetting behaviors become the norm, what's sort of insidious about the effect of long-term stress on us is that over time, self-forgetting behaviors where we just pitch in a little extra while somebody's sick for a while, and it's not a big deal. Those self-forgetting behaviors actually become behaviors that we become very self-identified with. And so this is, the sort of the stereotypic situation of someone taking on the role of feeling very martyred and yet not feeling able to let go of doing too much, is an example. So that is, just so that I don't ramble here. Okay, I'm pretty well on schedule. So, it's just that scenario of if the extreme level of stress has passed, whether it's surviving a difficult childhood or a long-term stress of some sort, whether it's a long-term stressful job situation, living through a period of war, that where, in our culture in the United States, we live through long periods of war. We're just very much shielded from it because of other people taking that suffering for us. And so in that situation, we're the ones perhaps under-functioning, many of us in the mainstream, under-functioning in terms of working toward peace because we're largely protected from the realities of war. So when those self-forgetting behaviors have become imbued with a sense of self, it really is going to take a lot of wisdom, support, and practice to change that. And so the change is rooted in, even if we are traveling in circles where we don't use these words, the change is rooted in undoing the eyeing and mying that has gone on. So again, we take a look at our attitudes of, am I showing up to be of service, or am I trying to make a situation or a person live up to what it is that I need them to be? Or myself, do I keep going back to situations that are chronically stressful and are not good for me, out of cultural norms? This is, it's always poignant and fascinating to me that, in my counseling practice, I work with adults. And yet, as we get into the holidays times, there's always at least one person who talks about, well, it's that time I'm going to have to go home. And, there can be reasons that people choose to go into places that they might rather not because they feel better about themselves if they do. There's some value that they want to carry out, whatever. But when somebody is truly believing they have to go home, that is also an example of the eyeing and mying. It's an example of being attached to that I have to do this holiday in a certain way because I have a certain way that I want to appear to be, that craving for being, to be or to appear to be some certain way. And so it's really, we start having a lot more suffering with that, and we actually add to suffering for other people. So I need to sort of wind this down, and I think that the last point that I wanted to be sure and mention, just because I do find that for people who either have come into the Dharma or are sort of exploring the Dharma as they come in, they have some mainstream culture's ideas about karma. And so one of the things that's really a challenge for people to work with is the uprooting of the shame that people have about growing up in really difficult situations. And it's just a developmental thing as we're coming up and we come up with a literal self-centered view of the world in which it certainly appears that everything is happening to us, at us. And of course, Dharma practice is about sort of outgrowing that view. But for the child who grows up in a chronically stressed situation, the sense of shame of not being able to fix that situation, and then sometimes we come into the Dharma, and rather than having a radical shift in how we see things and the unselfing all that, we actually will take ideas or things that we pick up and apply them to make them fit what we already believe. So, so I have people coming to see me that are trying to figure out what they did in a previous life to deserve being abused the way that they were abused in childhood, that sort of thing. And so I really just, in a very thumbnail way, want to say that that karma is actions and results. The actions that people perpetrated on us or carried out positively or negatively, that's their karma. And how we take care of ourselves going forward, how we respond to ourselves and others and tend to our wounds and address those things, that's our karma. Now, of course, it's something that is helpful to me, an illustration, is to think in terms of, if we're all standing in a swimming pool and one person makes a big splash and that wave's going to go out to the edges of the pool and then come back toward them. Now, all of us in their area are going to feel those waves, maybe suffer from those waves, and experience those waves going out and going back. But nobody experiences the waves as much as the person who started the action. And so it's really important that to recognize the waves that we went through in childhood that were about somebody else's actions, that disruption is real. But the tremendous power that we have by being the actor in our own lives, so that the waves we send and receive the benefit of have great power for healing and support for us. So I'm going to stop there so that we have some time for discussion, and I hope I haven't run over. But I want to mention that next April, I'll actually be doing a weekend retreat on this topic at Heartwood Refuge, and that's already listed at heartwoodrefuge.org. The retreats are donation-based. The accommodations, which you register and pay for on the front end, are insanely reasonable. So if this is a topic that you want to explore further, I hope you'll join me then. And I need to stop now. So thanks so much for being with me, and I hope that there is some time for a little discussion. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to open the board up for Q&A right now. If anybody has questions they'd like to address. And actually, if you click on the icon on the lower left-hand corner of the screen to raise your hand, you could even signal to me that you'd like to ask a question to live, and I'll turn your video on, and you're welcome to speak face-to-face, even virtually. And I don't know if everybody saw the chat icon at the bottom of your screen, but if you have a question, please type it into the chat field to everyone or to myself. I'm actually listed as Buddhist Recovery Network, and I can read that question out. And if questions don't arise, we can just move into a brief period of reflection here. Thank you. Even if you have comments, that's, I see some folks have actually remarked that this has been an amazing talk, and thank you for pointing out the connection between Buddhism and psychology. Mm-hmm. So we do have a question or a comment. Someone found the opening meditation a little sophisticated for her attempts to care for her body.
I can see that. It's sort of especially for such a brief time, it can be kind of a bit of a busy meditation. Whereas if I was doing 30 or 40 minutes like I do on a Sunday night, we might spend a good while to sort of get settled in the body first, and then from a place of greater stillness, have that experience of using those phrases. So that completely makes sense to me. But I would suggest trying it out with a longer period of time and getting settled in the body first. And then once you feel very grounded as you're sort of just watching experience come and go with that sense of providing yourself some stability right here, then being able to apply that almost in a rhythmic way with the breath. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not what I am. Now, I will also say that just because this is not mine or me doesn't mean I don't need to care for it. So it's not meant to be dismissive. It just might be that, oh, I'm really aware of some pain here. Well, this is not what I am. Doesn't mean I don't care for it. In fact, what it means is I can care for it, because that's not what I am. I'm not hindered by that. I can actually, whatever it is that I am, can respond to that.
Thank you. I had a question for you. Actually, we do have another attendant that has a question for you, or a comment and a question. This has really hit home for me, raising a teenager on my own. He's in his first relationship and has chosen a girl who self-harms. I've been able to remain objective with both of their interests in mind. He is inhibiting her growth in therapy, and she is using him as a distraction. They just can't let go. What else can I do to take care of us?
That is a great question. Other than offering opportunities for him to be in supportive settings, which he may already be, and whether it's therapy or support groups, or if in any way he is eligible for something like Alateen, if he has any loved ones that are recovering from addiction, his qualifier doesn't have to be the person that he's particularly concerned with right now. And so that can be a place where he can work with other teens who are learning to work with how to take care of themselves when, because the fact is it's natural that the mind kind of wants to ruminate and go out repetitively, obsessively when there's that fear of harm. And so having some peers be able to help with that can sometimes be, have more sway than us as parents offering certain types of support.
Thank you. I'm wondering, I think that some of us, as we find ourselves in a place of recovery where we're giving up some addictive behaviors for what is hopefully healthier behaviors, we still find ourselves putting ourselves in a place where we are creating stress and perhaps putting ourselves in a place where we're not our healthiest, best selves. We're doing it for some other reason, but we're not really recognizing it because we're doing so much better than we were before, or at least we're in a healthier path. But I'm just wondering, are you aware of like common symptoms of that manifest when people are doing that, like such as myself?
Yeah. Well, so for me, what I will say is one of the things that starts to go if I am getting off-centered and getting overly involved in other situations, is that my practice starts to slide. Now, it doesn't mean I have to be super rigid about my practice or I'm unhealthy, but I'm just saying whatever that practice is, whether it's meditation practice, journaling, whatever it is that normally helps us stay connected to what we're thinking and feeling, and just noticing the effect of our life on our body, the way we're living our lives. And that's also, for me, also been the way out. Like when I've known that I was in a work situation for a number of years, that during the last couple of years, due to various buyouts and just a radical change in the culture and even the intentions of the facility, that it became highly stressful. And so just the struggle to to stay in touch with the practice, one of the things that did was also helped me know when it was time to go and how. You know, what for me felt like the way that was most beneficial. So that's the thing, is sometimes I'll notice that when I'm overly stressed, there's a tendency to want to drop that stuff, and it's helpful to remind myself, like, okay, I may not even feel like I'm ready to make a change. I don't have to make a change, but just stay in touch with the practice, because that way when it is time to make a change, I have a better chance of making a change I can feel good about instead of an impulsive one.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Super helpful. Yeah, I think that might wrap up our questions. So I just really wanted to thank you for such an honest and actually very practical talk, which is wonderful when we can combine our spiritual practice with just plain old practicality. It was really something.
I'm so glad.
I wanted to just remind everyone that if you'd like to show your support for the teacher and show your support for our programs, I will paste up the Donna link again. Just recall that this is, it's a way to grow our recovery community and a way to grow the programs here. And it's also just a very practical expression of metta and compassion. So every little bit helps. Thank you so much. One of the coming retreats was mentioned, but I wanted to list both of them here. In the links, so that and I will keep the room open for about 15 minutes afterwards. So if anybody wants to copy them, there's not only the extension of this talk, the retreat in April, but in December of next year, there's going to be a retreat for writers and artists that you're doing with your daughter, Erin Ray, called "Training the Heart, Lifting Your Voice," and that's also at the Heartwood Refuge. So just put both of those up, and then I will paste that Donna link. So next month, if you'd like to join us on Sunday, January 6th, for our first talk of next year, we're going to have Carolyn Brazier. So I hope you all join us, and may you have a lovely week, and may you be happy and at ease. Thank you.
Thank you so much.